Hello, everybody, and welcome to Red Wings Daily, presented to you by FanArch. I'm your host, Kirk MckNight, author of The Voices of Hockey, Broadcasters Reflect on the Fastest Game on Earth, and coming to you from the Pacific Northwest. Now, I've mentioned before in the show that I'm 2,454 miles from Little Caesars Arena, and over the last few games, I've been closer to the Red Wings than most of you back in Detroit, with them being up here in the Pacific Northwest, and then Alberta for the last two games. But they've inched their way a little bit closer to home. They're taking on the Blackhawks tomorrow night. Closer rival than these guys back west. Obviously, a longtime rival from their days in the Western Conference, but they're coming to you guys. And so, speaking of the road trip, this was their fifth game of the road trip, and this was their first game in which they actually didn't gather a point. So, out of a possible 10 points so far on this road trip, they've gotten 7. Really great job. This point streak was snapped, obviously, with a regulation loss to Edmonton. But when you're going up against Connor McDavid and he's got 4 assists against you in a game, it's really hard, especially on a back-to-back. When you're on the second of a back-to-back and you're playing the Oilers, it's obviously really tough. And a lot of times the schedule makers do that to a traveling team, is basically put those two Alberta games back-to-back in 2-day span. So I wasn't really thinking. I was thinking, when the road trip started, that this would probably be the game that the Red Wings might not make it out of it with the win, especially coming on the back-to-back. But a little bit about the game. The Red Wings were 0 for 2 on the power play, and they were 1 for 2 on the penalty kill. I already mentioned McDavid had 4 assists. Zach Hyman had a hat trick, including his third one was the empty netter late in the game. So you got those kinds of things going against you. Speaking on the Red Wings side, though, Talbot is now 9-5-2 on the season. He is 0-3-2 in his last 5 games. I wanted to make sure I got that right. We had seen that Gibby had been going about a month without a win before he started heating up a little bit more. And now Talbot is kind of going through the same kind of process. He's 0-3-2 in his last 5 games. The last game he actually won was in November 22nd against Columbus at home. So we're seeing kind of a reversal of roles here. I've got to think that Gibby with the hot hand is going to be going into net tomorrow night against the Blackhawks to close out this road trip before the Red Wings head on home. So we'll see how that pans out. Now, speaking of last night's loss, the one goal that the Red Wings scored was by Simon Edvinsson. And Ed's, or Big Ed, I think it's like the perfect human is another nickname that I've heard that they give him, but first round pick, 6th overall. So a lot like Lucas Raymond, Mo Seider, Edvinsson, these high picks, first rounders. So you got a lot of hope for him. You got a lot of anticipation. So far, he's got 235 blocks in his career and 160 hits. He's got a plus and minus of plus 10. That's pretty good, and including plus 5 this year. And if you've been looking at the stats, the plus and minuses is one of the things that the Red Wings, for the most part, definitely don't have locked in. So having a plus 5 this year on this roster is pretty good. Now they're turning it around. Don't get me wrong. I'm not trying to be a negative Nancy about it, but I've been noticing when the Red Wings were having their struggles, the plus and minus was just abysmal, and now it's starting to improve a little bit. And Ed's, he's got plus 5 on that. So he's got 4 goals on the season, and he's basically ahead of last season's pace as far as goals go. He's not necessarily ahead of the pace as assists go, but he's a great supporting cast member on that D line. And one of the important stats, and maybe one that people don't talk nearly enough about because they're too busy looking at the goals, the assists, the points. But his average time on the ice is 21:45. That's really good. You can't ask. I mean, obviously that's a defender. Defensemen usually are up there in the 20s and stuff like that. But 21:45, he's probably one of the higher ones as far as defensemen on the team. So let's not overlook that. Let's just hope that he keeps his supporting role going and a solid D player. And obviously, the fruits of so many bad seasons for the Red Wings, getting these high draft picks and some of the trades that they've made to get these really high draft picks. And we're starting to see them another hope for the future with a young defenseman like that moving forward. So we'll have to see, if he surpasses his season high or his career high, a career of only 4 seasons, but his career high of 7 goals, which he's on a pace to do that. Now, tomorrow night's game is against Chicago, and there had been a lot of chatter about whether or not Kane gets 500 in Chicago when he started scoring a couple of goals, starting in Seattle, and he's inching his way closer. But now it's come down to one game and needing a hat trick to do it. So are we going to see a Pat trick in Chicago? I'm going to channel a little bit of Stephen A. Smith. Now, I'm going to bag on Stephen A. Smith because I feel like he is one of those pundits who just, Aaron Judge is a good player. LeBron James scores a lot of points. The Dallas Cowboys are a very popular team. Come on. So channeling a little of the bit of that, I'm just going to squash the notion that possibly Kane will get number 500 in Chicago. I love the guy. He's my favorite player, but I'm being realistic about it. His last hat trick was 3 years ago. He's got 9 in his career. So Kane's really not a well-known kind of hat trick player. You can see his goals to assist ratio, and you can see he's a passer. The guy is the full package, but he's not necessarily the Ovechkin out there where hat tricks come like going to the store and getting candy every week. So I don't really foresee it happening. I think he's got plenty of 2-goal games in his career. He's got 62 in his career, but there's another thing about this is the Red Wings are trying to get back to the playoffs. They are trying to make some headway in the Atlantic Division. Last night's loss, coupled with wins by Tampa Bay and Boston, took the Red Wings from 1st to 3rd. They're only a point back, but still, those kinds of things are going to start to matter a lot more as we get into the grind. Halfway point, 2/3 way point, 3/4 way point, finish of the season, where every point's going to count. So too much of a distraction, I would feel, to think, okay, Patrick going to get his 500th in Chicago. I don't think it's going to happen because I think the Red Wings are more in this lockdown mode. If he gets 500 in Detroit, great. Couple games down the road. If he gets 1 in Chicago, excellent. The last time he scored in Chicago was the game in 2024, February 25th. That was the overtime game winner in a moment I talked about in a previous Throwback Thursday. So go back in the archives of the shows, and we had a little bit of a discussion about that. His first game back in Chicago, he beats him in overtime. So I don't really see it on the horizon as far as getting 498, 499, and 500 tomorrow, but maybe he might get 498 and possibly 499. Now listen, I'm not going to completely outrule it because in those kinds of situations, especially if it's the game's close, that number 500 might come via way of an empty netter, but I just don't see it. I really just don't see it, and I think a lot of us don't see it, but it's fine. Wouldn't it be great if it happened? Yes. Guess what? A hat trick by Ovechkin a couple of years ago brought his career total to 800, and it happened where? Yeah, Chicago. So Chicago has that mystique. It's a great original 6 city. It's a great hockey town. It's not the hockey town, obviously that's Detroit, but we'll have to see. Like I said though, I don't see it happening, but stranger things have happened. Now we're going to change up the no cap recap. I think that we got to cut it a little bit shorter sometimes. I've been getting feedback saying, this is the reason I watch the show, but I want to stay with it just a minute because the AI slang translator is really what this is all about. And so I'm not even going to quote the original quote from McClellan from last night's press conference. I'll just paraphrase it. He's saying, like I said before, he said that this is one of the better games they've played on the road. He was looking at a lot of the positives. So I threw his comments into the slang AI translator, and this is what came out. I thought we came out to ball, This is going to sound sus, but this was one of our better showings on the road. We weren't scrambling like headless chickens as much, but straight up on offense, we just ain't getting gritty enough near the net. Like the net presence was weak sauce, for real, for real. We missed the net a ton and had hella shots blocked, so there's not much to gain from going hard to the net. Lame. I thought our hustle was decent, though. Just a couple of major whoopsies. We bailed on our goalie on the second one. The third one, a couple of our D-men were killing it tonight, but they both ghosted the net front. Boom. It's in. Can't be giving those dudes freebies like that. Now, folks, let's hope that the Red Wings don't give any freebies to the Blackhawks tomorrow night. And let's give them a warm welcome, and hopefully with 9 out of a possible 12 on this 6-game road trip as they wrap it up in Chicago. Hopefully it's a lot better result than the last time they played, a 5-1 loss in Detroit. But have a good weekend, folks. This has been Red Wings Daily. I'm your host, Kirk MckNight, and LGRW from the PNW.